Rearmed Ophelia provides Arcane Eclipse to all of the red mages, and in this video I'll be going over the best users of it and the build options that this weapon can open up. Of course, you should be giving this to your favorites, but if you have multiple candidates, then this video can definitely help you. Arcane Eclipse is a 14-mite red tome, and tomes are color locked unlike daggers, dragon breaths, and bows, so only the red mages are going to be able to make use of this weapon. And this weapon does give you minus on special cooldown and the quicken pulse effect at start of a map, and it also provides you with +5 to all of your stats and a guaranteed follow-up attack. And finally, it does give you debuff neutralization to your attack stat, so you can easily run Iceberg, Bonfires, AoE specials, and nuke really hard with a lot of the mages. And it also has debuff neutralization to your attack stat, which means that you don't really have to run attack res unity or attack speed unity, and you're not really going to be getting hindered by any kind of attack debuff. Because it also has the guaranteed follow-up attack, a lot of these slower red mages are going to be able to free up their slot B or secret seal from quicker post, and they can just get the auto follow-up in both of the phases. So it is going to be pretty helpful for those units. But for the most part, this weapon is mainly there for the nuking with the quicken pulse and the minus on special cooldown. And red mages definitely have no shortage of hard-hitting units. So let us take a look at the infantry red mages, which in my opinion make the best use out of this arcane weapon. And the reason being is that Rearmed Ophelia herself comes with Special Spiral 4. So mages do not have any kind of lethality or deadeye, and they previously had no options to pierce through the damage reduction. But now with Special Spiral 4, not only they can get more true damage and nuke harder, but they can also pierce through a lot of the damage reduction skills like Vital Astra, Close Call, Dragon Wall, and so many of the other skills. So almost always if an infantry unit is going to be using Arcane Eclipse, then they're also going to be using Special Spiral 4, because mages don't really have too many options when it comes to their slot B skill, and because you already get the guaranteed follow-up attack with this weapon, slower units don't really have to bother running quicker post, and a lot of the faster units can just make use of null follow-up secret seal as well. So if you're getting Arcane Eclipse on an infantry red mage, then I would definitely recommend getting the version 3 of Special Spiral from like the Divine Codes or from many of the other units, and then get the tier 4 version of the skill as well, which is going to be helpful for many of the mages. So nuking is going to be really important, which means that attack stat is going to be very important when we're going to be taking units into the account. And if a unit is slow, then their bulk is also important so that they can tank better and also fire off bonfires and icebergs. And if they have any kind of preferred skill or already have a refine, then it is going to be a trade-off, because you cannot really run any kind of preferred skill with an arcane weapon. I did go in depth with all of the rules about the arcane weapon in another video, which is going to be linked in the description. And if they have a better preferred weapon, or if they have an upcoming weapon refine in a period of a year, then I'm definitely going to be giving a heads up. So in my opinion, the best users and the tier 1 users of this weapon are going to be many of the red mages from the Grail and the free-to-play pool in Pelleas and Salem. So they do have high attack stat and also have workable enough speed. And we also have older Gen 1 units like Sanaki and Lilina making a comeback because their base attack is 49. And just to give you an idea, Rearmed Ophelia herself has got like 50 attack at max investment. So having 49 base attack does allow them to use AoE specials really well and nuke really hard. Alfric is pretty much a slower Pelleas who has got more resistance, so he can use Iceberg to fire that off. And I think that Dancer Micaiah or Hoshiden Summer Micaiah is also one of the best users. And the reason why I say this is because the dance skills and the vanilla refresh skills are not really counted as a preferred skill. So you can still run an arcane weapon and make use of dance. Having dancers that are actually competent in the combat as well is going to be a huge thing for Aether Raid's defense, especially now that we have got Embla who can, ignore the safe skills and have the undefended status and the feud skill on your enemies. And Micaiah is going to be a pretty good dancer if you want to have a pre-charge iceberg. So even in a scenario where she is isolated, she can still hit pretty hard with her resistance and with the pre-charge iceberg with the help of this weapon. Of course, Don Suzu does have the effective damage against armor and cavalry units, but he can hit really hard with the iceberg. And most of the time back in the days, Don Suzu was used for its hardy bearing effect when Vantage strategy was really common, and it's not really the case anymore. So you can just pre-charge this special with Micaiah and be a pretty good dancer in something like Aether Raid's defense. And in general, having dance does open up more options for the unit. You can also run this on speedy units like Azel and Hugh, who do have pretty high speed compared to the other units that are slower than them in this tier. They might not have the highest attack stat, but it's still pretty good at base 45. Hugh's weapon is basically a big stat ball with a bonus doubler, so this weapon does help you nuke a bit better in the player phase, and same goes for Azel. I think that this weapon does help you nuke harder with the pre-charge specials and everything, and with the use of Special Spiral. And in tier 2, we do have units who kind of get outstatted by some of the units above them. We've got Urk here, who does have pretty good speed stats. We also have the OG Celica here with her splendid stats. Miranda is also pretty fast and has similar attack to Celica, and Tharja is also chilling. Eventually, she's going to be getting a resplendent version, and we also have some other mages like Noel, Katarina, and Arvis. So Noel kind of, faces competition from Sanaki and the other red mages above him, who just have better speed while still having that kind of attack stat. And Arvis is going to be having that trade-off where his weapon does provide the broadly fan effect, but many times many of the enemies do have debuff neutralization, so this kind of weapon can just allow him to have the pre-charge specials and make use of his resistance to fire off icebergs, and it also provides him with the extra speed, so that is pretty helpful. And bulky red mages are not forgotten in tier 2, where we have got Sophia, who has got pretty good mixed bulk, and also Lyon. So Lyon unfortunately only got quick riposte, and with this weapon he's now able to have a much better player phase and nuke really hard. And Sophia can also function much better with this modern weapon. We do have Veld and Solon with those GHB gimmicky weapons, so if you just want to use them for the actual combat, then this weapon can work with their stat line, and they just have high attack and high resistance, which is pretty standard Grandeur Battle Mage stat line. In tier 3, we do have Lorenz in his speedo, and his stat spread unfortunately is spread out pretty weirdly, so he doesn't really excel in any kind of stat. And we also have Ray here, who's pretty much like an old Lorenz. And Summer Leo is chilling here in tier 3 with his resistance and attack. And Henry unfortunately doesn't really have the attack stat which is needed to nuke really hard with this weapon. And honestly, his weapon refine is just, much better because he does get the guard effect, which can make him really annoying. So I think you should probably be sticking to that because his attack stat doesn't really exactly go with the game plan of this weapon, which is to nuke really hard. A good amount of red mages already have a pretty good preferred weapon, which can make them quite unique, and there are a couple of red mages which are due for a weapon refine under a year. So if you're a Inheritable player or a low spender, then this is going to be coming at an opportunity cost, because you could have given this weapon to someone who already has a refine, which is not really very good, or someone who's never going to be getting a weapon refine. So that opportunity cost is going to be lying there, and we do have Fallen Julia and Kyria as the premier red mages, which can definitely make amazing use out of this weapon with their stat spread. But the thing is that I think they're probably going to be getting a refine in like a year, so it's much better to look for their weapon refine and see if it ends up being unique or not. But if you're really big fans of them and you can hardly wait, then I do understand, and if you use them daily, you should always be spoiling your favorites, and they do have the stat spread to make really good use out of this weapon. Special Spiral 4 should always be run on any kind of mage that you perform the Arcane Inheritance on, because it's such a good option for piercing through the damage reduction. And even if you're running, other specials like AoE specials, it can still help you loop and also get the true damage. And keep in mind that the AoE specials are not really going to be piercing through the damage reduction, because Special Spiral 4 does exclude the AoE specials from being able to pierce through the damage reduction. So that kind of sucks a bit, but still you do get the +5 true damage, and you can just stack up double life and death on a speedy unit like Pelleas and make him into an AoE mage and clear pretty much all of the abyssal content, chain challenges with like 3 dancers. And having the -1 special cooldown and quicken pulse does make it a lot easier to set up Special Spiral from getting Infantry Pulse, Duochrome, Asker, or many of the other support that do exist. And you can also run Still Water and Fury if you're running someone like Lilina, who's not exactly very fast, so Still Water can still preserve the resistance in case you need to tank some kind of mage, and Attack Res Oath 4 can also be run so that you can get the visible attack. And when it comes to a lot of the high attack resistance units, you're just going to be able to run Special Spiral to loop the iceberg and pierce through the damage reduction by also hitting extremely hard with this special. So someone like Sanaki can run that and then stack up the true damage with Special Spiral 4 and also the attack resistance finish 4 skill. By hitting this hard, you can easily take down many of the modern units as well, but keep in mind that Hardy Fighter defensive special armor units are not going to be getting their damage reduction pierced, and if they do run Deflect Magic, then running a 4 cooldown special like Glacies is going to be helping you in the case that you want to pierce through that damage reduction of the Deflect Magic. But just keep in mind that many of the far safe tanks do have the guard effect as well, so that is something that you have to watch out for. So pre-charging specials and looping them with Special Spiral is going to be the way of using this weapon, and you can also run this on speedy units like Celica, for example, who doesn't necessarily have very high defense or like resistance. So you can run Luna here, and because she's fast, she can just make use of attack speed finish 4, which is going to be crazy expensive, and the Oath 4 skills are always going to be good for giving you more offenses and also the teleportation. And Null Follow-Up Sacred Seal is really perfect for a fast unit because you can just stop the auto follow-up attacks of many of the opponents, which is going to be helpful defensively. And you can also run this with like Smoke 4 skills like Speed Smoke 4. Someone like Tharja does have that kind of bulk and HP to make use of that at max investment, and if you can outsource Null Follow-Up to some kind of support, then you can just run Bonus Doubler and get even more stats. And you can also run Attack Speed Ideal 4 in the slot A, which is a lot easier to get from the Divine Codes. And like I said before, Dancer Micaiah could be used in Aether Raid's defense with a Mirror Impact build with a pre-charged Iceberg, and this can stack up with Time Pulse because it's a Quicken Pulse effect. So you can just have a pre-charged 3 cooldown special like Iceberg, which can hit extremely hard with their resistance, and especially with the debuffs that Uni can bring in. Attack Smoke 4 can also be used on slower red mages because you can essentially get the Omni Breaker effect because Arcane Eclipse does have the guaranteed follow-up attack, and then you can get the follow-up negation with Attack Smoke 4 and also get the visible buff to your defense and resistance, which is definitely going to be pretty good if you do have the bulk, like Sophia for example, and then you can also get the healing with the finish kill and fire off icebergs. You can also run this on Lyon with something like Attack Res Ideal if you don't really have the finish 4 skill. And when you're going to be spamming specials, then the finish kills are just perfect. It's just that they're kind of, hard to come by because they're really rare at this point. And you can only get the finish 4 skill from Rearmed Ophelia at the same time. So that is going to be a bit annoying. But try and get those skills if you really want to have the ultimate build and get even more true damage and the healing. Mage Cavaliers, in my opinion, are the second best users of Arcane Eclipse after the Infantry units, and the reason being is that they don't really have too many, Inheritable red tomes that can really help them, and a lot of them are going to be slow, so getting the auto follow-up is going to be helpful. Seeing Duo Sigurd in tier 1 might seem really odd, but keep in mind the vanilla refresh skills do work with the arcane weapons, and this is from a perspective of competitive use in Aether Raid's defense. And now that we have Embla, you have Duo Sigurd, who has got 4 movement as a dancer consistently, and if he's going to be getting isolated, then he can just hit so hard with the pre-charge special with that 43 base attack. The reason why a combat oriented dancer can be really good is because Milla is going to be common in the light season, so even if this dancer gets isolated, they can still work as a nuke. So they are going to be, having more role than just dancing. And because they are an offensive dancer, the opponent can not really take them lightly when they are the last remaining unit if you're using something like a Gale Force team. I do use Gale Force a lot, and I don't really care whenever we have any kind of dancer with low attack, because I know I can just live a hit from them on my Plumeria or Winter Bernadetta. But when it comes to an actual offensive dancer, it can actually be scary if you don't really trap them with a Gale Force team, because they can just eliminate your unit. And that is going to be no different with Duo Sigurd, who is going to be functioning really well now that Embla is a thing and can bring back the Cavalry teams and the Cavalry strats and just disable the safe skills. And we also have Brattle Cecilia and Summer Mercedes in tier 2 along with Arete. So 3 of these are pretty similar when it comes to the stat spread, and Summer Mercedes is also going to be functioning well with that attack stat and resistance. Arete is a great option. She doesn't really have as much attack as Cecilia or Mercedes, but she does have that speed. And having, a bit of speed is not actually that bad when you have the guaranteed follow-up attack, because it means that you can bypass many of the follow-up negation effects, and you effectively have 39 speed with this weapon because it does provide you with some speed. And then in tier 3 we have got units who don't really have very high attack, so it's not really going to be the best with the nuking, especially with nuking with Glimmer. So they pretty much have to run Moonbow or Ruptured Sky, because cavalry units cannot have access to Time Pulse or Special Spiral, so they have to use 2 cooldown specials. So having lower attack definitely does not help when this weapon is mainly made for nuking, and they are going to be faster than a lot of the cavaliers above them, which can kind of give them a pseudo half-null follow-up, but still at the same time, not hitting that hard is going to be detrimental in my opinion. Still they can work out. They're not exactly, the worst units. Tier 3 is still a pretty okay tier in my opinion. But then in tier 4, we have got Leo with a really awkward stat line with more bulk and not a lot of speed or attack. So defensive cavalry units are very hard to function because they already have low BST, and a lot of defensive skills are not available for the cavalry units. So it is going to be a bit hard for them. And this weapon is not exactly made for like the best of tanking, it is more for the nuking, so that's why Leo is going to be finding himself here. And then we have other 4 red cavaliers who already have superb weapons. So when it comes to the cavalry units and something like Duo Sigurd, you can just run in with Double Fury for Ether Raid's defense and run Sabotage Attack. And if you have a high threat range team, then it can be pretty hard for the opponent to avoid the Sabotage Attack debuff. And you can just pre-charge Glimmer with your Cavalier and hit really hard. And then we have Summer Mercedes. So this is the build which I'm going to be running on her. I'm a huge Mercedes fan, and you can just run the Menace skill and Fortress skill. So Fortress is pretty much, the option that a lot of the cavalry units have as a retreat option over the infantry units, because they are going to be missing out on Special Spiral 4, and you cannot exactly run, Time Pulse to have a 2 cooldown special. You can run Quicken Pulse in the Sacred Seal, but then you're going to be losing out on some fire powers, so it does come at an opportunity cost pretty much. And Glimmer is going to be a good special that you can run on these kinds of, Mage Cavaliers who do have high attack stat. But if they don't really have the high attack stat, then Ruptured Sky is also going to be a pretty good option. And a speedy Mage Cavalier can just run the speed stacking skills like Attack Speed Catch and Attack Speed Menace. And then finally, we have Leo, who does have a bit different stat line. So you can actually make use of Attack Smoke 4 and then use this with Seal Resistance 4. And maybe pair this up with, an ally who can resistance debuff the enemies. So this is going to be providing you the guard effect, which is going to be really good defensively. And Attack Smoke 4 is going to be giving you that follow-up negation. So for the Leo fans, this is something that you can run at max investment. There are not a lot of red mage flyers that would want to have this weapon. We do have Plegian Dorothea, who does have that Spectrum Chill weapon. So if you want to have a more offensive weapon, again for Ether Raid's defense, then this could be an option. And Scion, Julia, for some reason didn't really get a preferred weapon, despite getting light and dark in this slot B. So that is going to be a trade-off, but honestly it's not the biggest thing because you can just run the Trace skill. Even though like Lull skill for a flyer is pretty nice, but Fallen Julia is going to be getting much out of this kind of weapon offensively, and it is definitely much better than Luminous Grace. And there are a bunch of red flyers who already have good preferred weapons, and they don't really need this. So these two are going to be the main units, and for Plegian Dorothea, you can just run an Ether Raid's defense build with Sturdy Impact, where she can try and survive and hit with a pre-charged Glimmer. And Scion Julia can just run the Cat skill, the Fortress skill, and Speed Resistance Rain, or the Hold skill if you want to have that 3 range. So that could work out, and this is mainly going to be helpful on these 2 units. And in the armor category, we literally have 2 armor units in Henriette and Winter Tharja. And Henriette is basically an upgrade of Winter Tharja, having better attack and also better resistance. And having more base resistance actually does help you against the AoE specials of many of the ranged threats. So Henriette is pretty much a better Winter Tharja, but if you're a big fan of Tharja, then this can definitely work out as well. Unfortunately, the range armor units cannot really run Hardy Fighter or Aegis, so they're not going to be performing as well as many of the top tier Farsafe tanks. But if you do use them a lot, then this weapon could be an option, and you can just run Special Fighter in the slot B and not really have to run any kind of Slick Fighter or Crafty Fighter, which is pretty nice because you can just fire off icebergs with the help of Special Acceleration, and you can just run Distant Defense 4, which is already in the base kit of Henriette. And when it comes to Tharja, you can actually run Defense Res Bond 4, which can give you the debuff neutralization to your defense and resistance, and already you get the attack debuff neutralization with this weapon. So you can just be immune to the debuffs, to the main stats, and you can just retaliate back with bonfires. Keep in mind that a Farsafe tank is going to be taking on multiple foes, so the Quicken Pulse effect is going to be bringing down Iceberg and Bonfire to 1 cooldown, and after that they can easily retaliate back with it, as long as the opponent does not have a guard skill or a tempo skill. And you can also run Mystic Boost 4 if you just want to get the healing, and also you want to retaliate back to the staff units. and the attack debuff is actually going to be pretty helpful in terms of the tanking, and you can just run a stand skill if you're not going to be running special fighter, so that's an option on Henriette as well. And because we don't have the special acceleration, you can just run Glimmer, which is going to be pre-charged with the Quick and Pulse effect. This is going to be my final Arcane Eclipse tier list. We do have tier 1 infantry units, and like I said, the infantry units make the best use out of the skill, and that's why they have their own category. The other units can not really make use of Special Spiral, Time Pulse, or many of the infantry only skills which they can use. And Special Spiral 4 is definitely the main one, which can set these infantry units apart from the other red mages because they can pierce through the damage reduction with the help of weapon like this, and also easily set up the Special Spiral because of the Quick and Pulse effect. Even if you disagree with my tier list, I have shown the stats of every single unit here in comparison with other units, so you can definitely check it out for yourself and come to a conclusion. And if you want to break down this tier list further into a free-to-play section, then you can see that we definitely have got a lot of red mages in Grand Tour battles and just as free units. So Pelleas is going to be on the top there with Lilina, Salem, and Alfric. And we also have many tier 2 red mage options. So if you have any of these built up, then this weapon is going to be pretty helpful. And we don't really have any kind of premium red mage flyer or armor unit. So when we go to the premium section, they are going to be there. And we definitely have a lot less premium red options, but they can definitely be pretty good, like Sanaki, for example, or even Celica, who's an older Gen 1 unit. Summer Mercedes is my favorite, as you guys know, so I'm going to be giving her this weapon no matter what. And after that, Sanaki is definitely going to be on my priority as well, because I'm very close to plus and merging her. And as you saw, she can definitely hit really hard and make amazing use out of this weapon. So make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to give Arcane Eclipse to any of their units. And if you enjoyed, then please be sure to leave a like, it really helps me a lot. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below as well. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I wish YouTube sub boxes would show my videos as many times as we get Grand Tour Battle red mages. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.